Hello and welcome back to Balls and All on 94.1 FM 3WBC. We are joined by Ray Chamberlain, one of the great AFL field umpires. Hello Ray, thank you so much for joining us on Balls and All. How are you doing?
Rich, thanks for having me on, mate. I'm well. Thank you. Yourselves?
Very well, thank you.
Ray, just firstly, I think it's just hard to sort of imagine you leaving AFL. You've been a part of the competition for so long and in the Hall of Fame as well. What sort of led to the decision on having to retire from AFL umpiring?
Well, first of all, you're a bit kind, so thank you. That's very nice of you. And look, to be honest, it's something you do, AFL umpiring and AFL footy, and I've loved it, and I've been really grateful for all the good stuff, all the stuff in the middle, and all the stuff that's not been so great. It's been my experience, and I've really been blessed to be a part of it. But you don't do it forever, right? You can't. And for me, there's just a raft of things, you know, like essentially, you know, as a result of my back, I'm unable to bounce the football in game, and that's something that is required from umpires, and so that doesn't sit well with me too much, that I'm unable to do that. And so and then as a result of that, there's been some other physical ailments that sort of start to pop up, and at some point along the way, you know, you've got to make a call. And for me, I've had a really joyous experience. I'm really grateful for everything that I've been afforded, and the time's right.
And obviously you've umpired 2 grand finals as well, one of them being the 2010 drawn grand final. What has it been like to umpire AFL grand finals, Ray?
So it's a super question. So when you make the AFL, so clubs want to win a flag, right? And that's what it's about for them. It's about being aspirational. It's an elite level of competition. And for us as officials, we desperately want to try and be selected and have that opportunity. In the history of the game, there's only been 60 people do it, roughly, rounding it off. So it's not something that's handed out to everyone. So to be able to have done it a few times is incredibly humbling, but also so super exciting when you're involved. And it's something that I'll look back on in time, I suspect, with a fair bit of pride, actually. The things you remember more, Fletch, are the people, if you really want to know. Like when I'm telling stories or I'm at dinner and we're talking about things and having a laugh, I answer questions about the grand finals, obviously, the ones I got picked for, the ones I missed, and thought I should have, and, you know, all of those things. But when I'm telling stories and when I'm relaying things that I remember most fondly, generally it's to do with the people who you've been involved with, and so they're the things that I probably will remember most fondly.
Ray, thanks for joining us tonight. I did want to ask, you've been in the AFL umpiring for 20 seasons, and I wanted to ask, how was it that you first got into umpiring? Why did you want to become an umpire, when you made that decision back in the day?
I love the game. I played footy when I was younger. I played until I was 18. I wasn't any good. I played in a couple of rep teams and things like that, and premiership teams for my club. I played for a club called the Tuggeranong Lions in Canberra, and in that area, that part of town, we had names that, I don't know whether you guys sound a bit young, but Justin Blumfield and Aaron Hamill and Craig Bolton, they were kind of the big dogs that came out of my age group from that part of the world, and they all had incredibly successful AFL playing careers. And then an umpire didn't turn up for my brother's game, and I was there watching my brother play. And so the president of our club said, Ray, we won't let anyone slag you off, and we'll fill your car up with petrol if you umpire the game. So that seemed like a pretty good deal to me, and I found I just loved it. And there was a gentleman watching, and it turns out he was a coach, an umpire's coach. He was watching someone on another ground, and he came and introduced himself, and he basically bullied me for the next 8 weeks to go and take it up. And I'm really grateful. His name is Bob Stacey, and I am indebted immensely to that man's persistence.
I think it's really uncredited the amount of information you have to take in as an umpire and the constant rule changes. And I know there's been a lot of commentary this year about changes in regards to holding the ball, but you've been famously quoted into saying, I didn't write the book, I just read it. And how important do you think it is for up-and-coming umpires now when the game is changing so rapidly and there's so many more eyes on the game, for umpires to sort of have the support that they don't always necessarily get from spectators?
Yeah, well, if I reflect, when I started as a teenager, I got a lot of positive affirmation from not just my club but other people, because generally speaking it was dads that were doing the umpiring, right? So they were generally older and not necessarily in best nick. And so when you were a young fellow running around, everyone was sort of quite positive, and so it built a level of self-belief and also like enjoyment. And so by the time I was umpiring local football at senior level and everyone apparently thought we were playing for the farm, that emotion and those things that sort of come over the fence at times, it was water off a duck's back, because I had built this inbuilt belief that I'm doing a good job, and this is more that that's them. It's not really so much about me. It wouldn't matter who's out here; they'd be responding probably the same way. So I just think for people who are out there at junior sport, it's so important that you're being a positive impact into whatever the environment is. And I've got this. A gentleman told me this line. I wish it was mine. It's not my line. But he sort of said, I always think it's funny, Ray, when people go, we noticed the umpires today. He goes, if you don't turn up next week, they'll notice you more. and I think that's really true. And I think people should have a think about that before they spill their coffee at the junior footy.
And obviously at AFL level as well, there are things yelled over the fence. How overwhelming can it be to sort of deal with the crowd? And do you give it much attention when you're out there? No, you do hear this noise, Fletch, and more often than not, you'll hear this. It's not like, Barbara, can you pass the sauce? It's more like when you dive under a wave and you just hear that sort of rolling sort of thunder, if you like. But I'd be lying if I said you don't hear anything, particularly when you get close to the boundary line, right? And you're right up against the fence and whatever else. But generally speaking, the fans are funny. They know their footy, they live it, they love it. And I've heard some hilarious stuff come over the fence, which is always enjoyable.
You just mentioned some of the things. You've heard some things from, I suppose, supporters and what they've had to say. What are some of the funniest things that you've heard from players that are actually on the field?
So in terms of, with one another, it's generally banter about their hair and these sorts of ridiculous stuff. It's not particularly highbrow. There's not a lot of cognitive sort of stuff going on. In terms of with us, more often than not, it's so fast today, and no longer can a player just sit in the goal square and wait for the ball to come to them. They're involved in their movement of the ball and defending the ball all over the ground. And so if they're sitting there gobbing off at us and not doing their thing, they're letting their team down, and they're letting and the coaches don't look too fondly on that. So we don't get a lot really, and whenever we do, it's generally they come and they go, "Hey, tell me what's going on with this." And so they generally come out because they want information, they want clarity, and ultimately that's our job. So more often than not, the conversations on the field are pretty cool. It's very rare that it gets too heated anymore, but back in the day it used to be a bit more colourful.
And Ray, just outside of footy, you were embarking on a teaching degree, you've got a diploma in financial services, but you're also one of the co-founders of the Chamberlain Foundation, which works towards suicide prevention and is a mental health charity. It's so important in Australia at the moment. I think we're seeing a lot more discussions about mental health, and for the Chamberlain Foundation and doing Chamberlain Champions, for instance, and working with first responders, how has that been for you to sort of focus and put your time and energy into?
To be honest, it's probably the most rewarding thing that's been able to come out of being involved in footy. So my brothers and I, we got drawn into this for a myriad of reasons, but ultimately we saw an opportunity to be able to leverage some stuff, my brothers' businesses and their secular employment and the networks they have there. And for my minor involvement, it's to do with my involvement in Australian rules football. And look, we're not experts at much. Let's get that really clear. But what we do is we run some really good events, and we've got some really cool people who come along and support them. and then what we do is we donate funds to programs where the experts are and they're making a difference in these areas. And whether that's supporting the mental health and well-being of our first responders who, let's be honest, you know, we probably don't give it nearly enough thought until, of course, we're in trouble and then we need them. So, you know, that's a real passion piece for us. And then, you know, more recently, we've been looking at young people in sport and trying to promote the physical and mental fitness. And that's been our relationship with the Danny Frawley Centre in the last couple of years. So we raise funds and we distribute those to programs that are making an impact in those areas. And the people who are running those programs are the experts. So that, you know, it's incredibly rewarding. You meet the most incredible people, so many wonderful people who are lending a hand. And so I find that to be probably the most fun I have all year is when we have those events.
Well, thank you so much, Ray, for joining us on Balls and All this evening. It's been great to watch your umpiring journey, and it was great to talk to you this evening. Thanks for your time.
Greatly appreciated, Fletcher. Enjoy the evening, everyone.
And that was Ray Chamberlain, AFL field umpire, joining us there on Balls and All. And what an intriguing chat that was.